Let me start by saying that this story is more of a PSA for all women. No matter where you live, no matter how safe you think it may be, there are always horrible people lurking in the shadows, waiting to do you harm if you let them. I live in a nice suburb of Nashville, Tennessee. We have a very low crime rate and a very large police force ratio for the population that lives here. The most serious crimes that happen around here are kids stealing a pack of gum now and then. So, you can imagine the absolute horror I felt when the following events happened to me and my daughter on a seemingly normal March evening. In the post-COVID days, my local Walmart is no longer open 24 hours and closes at 10 p.m. My daughter, who is 13, was in need of some last-minute supplies for a school project that she failed to tell me about until the last minute. It was 9:15 p.m. when she told me, so we quickly got in the car and took the quick drive over to our neighborhood Walmart. When we arrived, the store was rather empty, with maybe 15 other vehicles in the parking lot. Not unusual for a Thursday evening. As we walked into the store, a voice came over the intercom to announce that the store would be closing in 30 minutes. So make your final selections and make your way to the front. We made our way to the craft section, where my daughter made the necessary selections for her project. But as we walked up and down the craft aisles, I noticed an older-looking man seemingly following us aisle to aisle. Every time I would look his way, he would just act as if he was looking at something on the shelf. After about 10 minutes of this, I started to get a bit uneasy, so I wanted to confirm this man was watching us and not just looking in the same area. I exclaimed to my daughter, "You know what? I just remembered. We're out of milk." My daughter looked at me confused as I took the construction paper out of her hand and threw it in the cart. As we left the craft aisle, I said quietly to her under my breath, "Act natural and stay close to me." She obeyed, and we walked to the dairy section. I would sneak occasional looks over my shoulder to see if the man was still behind me, and more than once, I saw him ducking down a random aisle. At this point, my inner mama bear alarm was going off. I quickly ducked down a random aisle at the back of the store, almost yanking my daughter with me as I swerved the cart. I shot her a serious look, and she didn't say a word. I made a few more quick turns with the cart and decided to cut our trip short. I'd let her teacher know it was my fault she didn't finish the project. Just as we were getting up to the register, the loudspeaker came on again, announcing the store was closing in 5 minutes. As I got to the register, I was looking around for the man and spotted him a few rows down at the self-checkout. He was with another older man, and they were conversing together. I stared at them intently until the one man who was initially following us looked up and immediately looked right back down. When it was our turn to check out, I told the cashier what was going on, and he called his manager, who was nice enough to offer to walk us out to our car. I took him up on his offer, as I was thoroughly creeped out at this point, and could tell my daughter was too. After we paid for our items, the manager walked out with us. As we were leaving the store, a U-Haul truck was parked suspiciously at the front of the store. Inside, I could see the two men that were at the checkout. I pointed them out to the manager, and as I did this, the U-Haul sped off. I'm not sure the manager believed us until this moment, but the shock on his face said it all. We called the cops after this and gave a statement. One of the officers followed us home to make sure the men didn't. Overall, I'm super thankful for that manager, who was kind enough to walk us to our car. If he hadn't, I don't think I'd be here to write this story. Like I said at the beginning, let this story be a PSA to women everywhere. No matter how safe you think you are, evil lurks everywhere, and human traffickers have no boundaries. Stay vigilant and stay alert. I graduated high school in 2008 and decided to take a gap year. My parents said I could still live at home if I wanted to, but I'd have to get a job. Conveniently, I lived within walking distance of my local Walmart. I could literally see the back of the store from the back porch of my parents' house. So, a week or so after the hype of graduation died down, I walked over to Walmart to see if I could apply. I submitted my application, and a few days later, I got a call asking me to come in for an interview. I went in and was offered a position on their night stocking crew shift. My shift would be from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. While I wasn't stoked about the hours, I had nothing better to do. My first day went well, and quite honestly, my whole first month went great with no problems. But the one and only night that didn't is one I'll never forget. It was sometime in mid-late July, on a Wednesday night. I was scheduled to work my normal 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. Since I lived less than 5 minutes from the store, I mainly walked to and from, unless it was raining. But tonight was as clear as it gets, so naturally, I walked to work. I arrived at the back employee entrance around 9:45 to go in and mentally prepare myself for another monotonous 8-hour shift of stocking shelves. As I was taking all the things out of my bag, I picked up my lunchbox. It felt lighter than it normally did, and a moment of realization hit when I remembered I never unpacked it from the night before. No worries, I thought. I'll just run home on my lunch break and grab it. Thinking back, I should have just asked my dad to bring it to me, and I would have never been in the mess I soon found myself in. But honestly, taking a late-night walk with some fresh air sounded nice. The first half of my shift went on as normal, and soon enough, it was time for my lunch break. I went back into the employee area and clocked out. I walked to the very back of the store, opened the employee entrance door, and began the short trip back to my house. I got to my parents' house, retrieved my pre-made lunch from the fridge, and instead of going immediately back, I thought I still had 20 minutes. I'll just enjoy my lunch at home. At 3:25, I started the 5-minute walk back to Walmart. The walk back was normal, but when I arrived at the store, something felt off. As I approached the store, I noticed what was causing the odd feeling. The employee door was standing wide open. Under no circumstances should the employee door ever be left open. I walked up to it and went inside, only to find myself in complete darkness. Someone had shut off the lights in the stockroom. I texted one of my fellow coworkers, Devin, who I'd become friends with over the past month, and asked him what was going on. In the meantime, I began making my way over to the light switch to try to turn the lights back on. Just as I was about to turn the lights back on, a loud crash made me jump. It came from the far side of the warehouse. "Hello?" I yelled out. "Is everything okay?" I stood there, awaiting a response, but nothing came. The stockroom was completely silent. After what felt like an eternity of silence, I began to hear footsteps moving in the darkness, and like a scene out of a horror movie, I received a text back from Devin, saying, "Dude, we've been looking everywhere for you. If you're still back there, get out now. There's some crazy guy running around in there with a knife." My blood ran cold as I heard the footsteps rapidly approaching. I sprinted for the big double doors leading out to the main sales floor and kept running all the way to the front of the store where all the workers were standing outside waiting on the police. My manager was furious, wondering where I was, and after I explained the situation, he calmed down a bit. I told them what happened while I was back there, and everyone was freaked out. Apparently, when I left to get my lunch, a homeless man snuck into the stockroom after one of the employees went outside for a smoke break and forgot to close the door behind him. One of the other workers spotted him attempting to hide behind some boxes and told everyone to evacuate. I guess after they left, the man shut off the lights to hide. A few minutes later, the cops arrived and found the man attempting to climb up the storage shelf and hide behind some boxes. To think, I was seconds from coming face to face with this guy in a pitch-black storage room still gives me chills to this day. As far as I know, the cops said he was a harmless homeless man who was likely just looking for a place to escape the summer heat and sleep. They never found a knife either, so maybe that part was an exaggeration. But it was still pretty terrifying, nonetheless. For some context, I'm a 24-year-old female, but I've been told I look way younger than my age on multiple occasions. I don't really ever see it, but I guess my 5'4" stature can give off that idea. Anyways, I work as a cashier on the closing shift at my town's Walmart neighborhood market. For those of you who aren't familiar with these, it's a smaller Walmart that only has groceries and other household necessities. It's usually a bit larger than a Dollar General and located in towns that aren't quite big enough to sustain a full Walmart. For the most part, it's a pretty normal job. Of course, there's the occasional random guy trying to hit on me, but nothing quite like this one. It was around 9:30 on a Monday night, and I was at my normal position, checking people out. Towards closing, especially on Mondays after 7 p.m., there are maybe 5 people tops that check out. The store had just made the "we close in 30 minutes" announcement when an older man, probably mid to late 40s, came walking up to the register with a few things in his hands. He laid them out, and I started scanning them. I gave him the normal, "Did you find everything okay?" To which he replied, "Yes, thank you." There was no one else in line, and eerily, there was also no one at the front of the store in general. As the man pulled his card out to pay, he decided that was the perfect time to strike up some small talk. It started normally like, "Slow night, huh?" To which I responded, "Yeah, it usually clears out around 7 on Monday nights." Then it took a hard 180 when the next words out of his mouth were, "Is it scary being up here by yourself? I mean, if I was the manager, I wouldn't leave such a pretty young girl up here by herself." I was honestly so taken aback by the complete shift in both the conversation and this man's demeanor. A slight smile began to form on his face as he said these words, and after a few seconds of silence, I just said, "No, not really. I can call anyone on the radio or intercom anytime, so I'm not ever really alone." The man seemed to ignore my response altogether and continued with his audacious comments. "Does your boyfriend know they leave you up here by yourself? Because if I were him, I wouldn't stand for that." Clearly, I knew he was just trying to get me to divulge if I was seeing someone or not. At the time, I was single, but I responded back with, "Yes, he's well aware of my work hours. He actually picks me up after my shift every night." The smile on the man's face slowly slid away. Inside, I was screaming. The intense gaze of the man looking down at me made my skin crawl. Well, if I were him, I'd be sitting right over there, making sure no one was causing you any trouble. There are some evil people in this world. At this point, I was desperately looking around, hoping one of my coworkers or another shopper would come and see the situation I was in. I did the only thing I could think to do. I pressed the intercom button and said, "Joey to checkout, please. A customer has a question about a coupon." Joey was the manager on duty, who was a really great manager. Towards the ends of our shifts, he would help the stocking crew get a head start since we were short-staffed at the time. Upon hearing me say this, the man quickly grabbed his bags and nearly ran out of the store. A few minutes later, Joey arrived at the front. "What's up?" Where's the customer? Is everything okay?" He could tell that I was visibly shaken. I told him the situation, and he said he would review the footage and keep an eye out for the man. But overall, the man didn't do anything that would warrant calling the cops other than just making me uncomfortable. At the end of my shift, Joey walked me out to my car to make sure the man wasn't waiting for me in the parking lot. Thankfully, he wasn't. After this shift, Joey moved me to stalking at night. The main reason I wasn't already was because I was too short to reach the shelves, but nothing a simple ladder can't fix. I haven't had any more run-ins with the man, and while I know this isn't the creepiest of stories, you didn't get to see the look on this man's face as he spoke to me like I was some kind of child. It was like the feeling of a predator stalking its prey, and a feeling I never hope to encounter again. Thanks so much for listening to Nightmare Narratives. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be reminded when we post a new video every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central Time. If you have a story you'd like to hear read on the channel, email it to us at officialnightmarenarratives@gmail.com, and you might just hear your story featured in a future episode. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.